I'm always surprised by the books because when I start them, I don't know where they're going to go. I have no idea. And this one surprised me by taking Brunetti into a situation in which he would be forced to think about his past in a close way. Because in other books he's thought about the past, what people were doing, what people were saying, what they were reading, what they were studying. But in this he takes a look at Italian history that he lived, but it's already the distant past. And I merely showed the way people in Italy do and can think about the past, as we all do. So when we hear of something, some disaster or someone died, an example would be Tina Turner. So at the much regretted, the sad death of Tina Turner, I'm sure that many people thought back to the person they were when they first went to see Tina Turner in concert, and what emotions they felt at the time and still feel now towards this singer. So I think in this book what Brunetti does is something that we all do. But since we do it and we don't really think about it, because it requires that we should be thinking about the way we are thinking, so you have to make two steps. The book just shows the way he thought about the way he thinks about the past now. And as he learns more about what happened, he thinks more about what happened, as I think we all do. I hope you're happy wherever you are, Tina. I never saw you dance, I never heard you sing, but I think you were fabulous and still are fabulous. Yeah, and not only am I surprised by what Brunetti says and does, but I'm surprised by what happens in the book. Because when the crime happens in the beginning of the book, usually all I know is what happened. I don't have any idea about why it happened. So as I continue with the book, as I continue writing the book, and Brunetti continues trying to find out why, we are equally ignorant, because I haven't discovered yet what Brunetti has to discover. So we are walking side by side, and I, usually before Brunetti, I think of a reason why someone might have done this bad thing, whatever the bad thing is. So what I have to do, because my idea just came from nowhere, from the tooth fairy or from the plot fairy. But what I have to do is write about things that happen that will be sufficient to transfer this idea of why it happened from my brain to Brunetti's. So he has to meet someone, he has to read someone, he has to remember something during a conversation, someone has to ask him a question, because he doesn't have a clue about what I know. So this is when it gets difficult, because I have to get this information into his head without the narrator. Because in some novels, the narrator could say, well, he was soon to discover that really what happened was. In these books, that doesn't happen. There has to be someone who comes to Brunetti and says, did you know this about him? And then Brunetti has an idea. And I think this is the really difficult part of writing a crime book, getting the information to your detective without his, I don't know, tripping on a stone in the forest and he leans down and the answer is written on the stone, because people don't buy that anymore. Those are the parts that I enjoy tremendously, because very often they are things that people will recognize and say, oh yeah, me too. And there's another one when Grifoni explains the doors, why the door to her office has been changed. And then because already it's a running gag about the size, her office is about this big. So she explains to Brunetti where the door is. and it becomes a kind of anti-police thing because she's stealing something from the building of the Questura. But it doesn't have anything to do with the book, nothing. And even the introductory part where a secret is revealed about one of the people at the Questura, that has nothing to do with the book either. But I think I take those liberties now because many of the readers are part of the family. They know the kids, they know the parents-in-law, they know the friends, they know the people at the Questura. So I can tell stories about them that don't relate, because otherwise it would just be crime, clue, 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 clue. Put the clues together, explanation, arrest, end. And that would be, for me, that would be terribly boring. The first is Great Expectations by Dickens, which is one of his early books, and I find it a wonderful book because it teaches the reader what the real meaning of being a gentleman is. Pip, the protagonist, is a young country boy, no education. He reads and writes, but that's all he knows. For some reason, he gets a lot of money is given to his guardian, and the instructions are, use this money to make Pip a gentleman. So Pip is sent to London to become a gentleman. And the book shows it's like someone in a tailor's office who tries on this coat to see if it's right for a gentleman, or tries on this coat to see if it's for a gentleman. And finally, at the end of the book, he realizes what it is to be a gentle man. It's really it was a formative book for young English readers years ago. Another one is, and I just thought of it this morning, it's called The House of Mirth. I think it's a reference to the Bible. It's a story set in about 1900. It's written by a woman, Edith Wharton, who was a member of high New York society. Rockefeller, Roosevelt, all of the real moneyed, the Mellons, the whole lot of the people who made their millions and maybe their billions in the great expansion of American wealth. She, however, is the child of the minor branches of one of these families. So they aren't rich. Everybody says, oh, but she has no money. So the only way that she can feed herself is either to be the companion to one of her female relatives. So she goes from rich house to mansion to country estate as the poor relative. And she earns some money by playing bridge. Sometimes the women will play bridge. So Lily Bart, she can earn a little bit of pocket money. And another way she can earn money is to become the heir of someone in the family. And she meets a young man who's a journalist. He doesn't have any money, but he's very charming and he's very nice, and she falls in love. But he can't marry her because he's also a member of the high society, but they both are realistic enough to know that unless they get some money, things will not be perfect. It's very, very good. I've read everything in my life. I've read everything, probably read everything twice. There are two scenes in English American literature at which I always cry. Every time I've read Dickens' Great Expectations, there's a death at the end of the book, and I cannot read it without tears in my eyes and coming down my face. It is a cliche, a cliche. Even thinking about it makes me want to cry. And in The House of Mirth, someone dies. And if I read that, I cry too. They're the only two scenes. Romeo and Juliet can go die. I don't care. I'm not going to. I don't know why that is. Anyway, I do. And the third is another English novel by a contemporary of Dickens, Thackeray, called Vanity Fair. And it's about another young woman. She's the daughter of a woman who dances in the opera, and a painter. So she's a little bit respectable in her family. But she's smart, and she's clever, and she's beautiful. Becky Sharp. Becky Sharp. And she becomes the servant of a rich old lord. And she realizes that if she were to marry the lord, she'd be a lady. And so Becky goes to work, and for the next 600 pages, we read Becky's career, which goes money, no money, money, no money, disgrace, husband dies, no money. It's just wonderful. And Becky is bad. But she's not bad with capital letters, because she still she's charming, she's intelligent, and she's decent. She doesn't hurt people unless she has to hurt them. In fact, there's a scene in the book, in Vanity Fair, where there's a woman who has been her rival for the love of a man and married the man. And Becky realizes that she could hurt this woman. She could tell her something that would really destroy her. And Becky says, there's no reason to do it, which is perfect Becky, because it means if she had a reason, she'd do it. But there's no reason to do it, so she doesn't ruin this woman's life. And that's Becky. Oh, it's such a good book. I'm trying to think of a short book. For people who like fantasy, and I think the readers in Spain are very, very fond of fantasy, I would recommend Philip Pullman, Pullman. He's an English writer. Maybe 15 or 20 years, he published a trilogy called His Dark Materials, which is a mixture of religion, of fantasy, of out in space stuff. It creates an alternate world, but the alternate world is perfectly drawn. He didn't leave any windows open. They're very, very good. I've read them twice as well. That's all. That's enough. That's that many.